Right, are you ready to start?
Yep.
All right. Welcome to the Mixed Dandelions podcast, where we talk about being mixed, military, and moving on. So today's guest host I've known since he was probably 7th grade, so it's been a couple of decades. But Ko, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So Ko, why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, and then also like what your racial and ethnic background is, how do you self-identify, any interests, hobbies, career, whatever you want to say.
All right, so I'll start off. My name is Ko. Last name is Arms, Japanese and Black American. Born and raised in Okinawa, Japan. I was born in Naha City. Shout out Naha City. Raised in Camp Kinzer. My father was a Marine. And then, so white American is my stepfather. He raised me. So that's maybe a different podcast. But my father's Black American. Mother's from Okinawa, or Miyako Island, actually. And then we grew up in Okinawa. I identify as mixed race, Japanese and Black. And I guess right now, most interesting thing about me is I'm a dad. Super involved, super duper exhausting.
Yeah.
They're all girls, all the girls, and then we do homeschool. So
wow.
Did homeschool last 2 summers ago, pre-COVID. And then we tried it out, and then, okay, no, you guys need to go to public school, and then we'll just focus on this one. But it's just kind of hard, and trying to do it like an online business, or not online, but at home business is difficult. And then so, and the business is photography. So I've been doing that for the last, 5 years. And it's been interesting.
Yeah, I've seen some of your pictures. You take great pictures, and yeah, you're not just any dad, you're a girl dad. So oh, sweet. So I didn't realize your mom was from Miyako Island. What made her go to the main island?
So small island, right? And then so like just more opportunity, I guess. And my grandmother's there now. My mom is actually here. She's moving to help us with all those things that I just mentioned.
Right.
So and she does remote working right now. So like she still has obligations, but then like after the podcast, we have gymnastics, school pickup, and we take the kids to the school across town, which is like an hour drive.
Oh my gosh.
Like 40 minutes every morning, and it's just a lot. So, but yeah, Miyako Island, small island farm, fishing, and then Okinawa is like an international hub. But yeah, so she moved there we have family on both spots, but she was born and raised in Miyako for the most part.
Have you ever gone to that island?
Yeah, we used to spend summers there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was amazing. We used to spend summers there. So
yeah.
Hopefully next time, that's something Karen and I were talking about, like doing some island hopping if we ever get back to Okinawa, because they have the ferries and then some of the
ferries.
Yeah, bridges.
Gaki, and then we go down, and then one time we took we went from Okinawa to Miyako, and then we went the ferry. It felt like a cruise. You can get like you can just get like the overnight. We did overnight. If you do the ferry, it's overnight. You sleep on this open floor. Or you can get like the bungalows or whatever it is, or the cabins. So normally if we go overnight to Miyako, it's just like you wake up and you're there. So we just slept on the open floor, the tatami. They have like tatami area, and everyone's sleeping. And then so we went from the best trip, felt like a cruise. We got these cabins. It was like first class, I guess. And then we went from Okinawa to Miyako all the way down to all the islands, Ishigaki, got off a little bit, and we went all the way up to Tokyo. So that was really nice.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. That's like a big old cruise.
Yeah, that was nice.
That's one beautiful thing about Okinawa. I mean, out of the many beautiful things of Okinawa are the smaller islands that, because it's just a group of islands, and the tropics. I miss it. All right. So let's get started, I guess. So you said you're a Marine Corps brat. So, and you only lived in Okinawa, right? And then moved to the States when you were a teenager? And
well, no, so basically kind of sort of initially, so we moved. I first came to the States, I was 4 years old, and then so I got the green card, and then we stayed in Virginia Beach, and then for a year, and then my dad became a recruiter, and his family's from Michigan, so then he spent some years in Michigan, like 2 or 3 years in Michigan. Then we went back to Okinawa, and then from like 4th grade to 10th grade, we were in Okinawa. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what was your favorite aspect about growing up in the military?
I just think like looking back on it, the variety, just like the variety of just the friendships and the cultures, and like just in a one block radius, you would just have people from all over the place and all over the world, basically. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was fun. That was the most my highlight growing up.
Yeah. What about your favorite thing about growing up in Okinawa? Because that's pretty unique in itself.
Yeah, I just think like so. I grew up in the southern part. Naha City was where my family was, and then well, my mom's side, and then we grew up on Camp Kinzer. And Camp
Hmm.
Kinzer is located on the beach. So like my elementary school was on the beach. The gym was on the beach. The pool was on the beach. It's just like it was beach. That's the most epic. The sunsets, the sunrises. When the typhoons would come, you could see the waves crashing and stuff.
Hmm.
Extremely tropical, beautiful water. Island, island style for sure.
It's
Yeah.
the island life, yeah. And then Kinzer is on the East China Seaside, so that was the sunsetting side,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, epic.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
I remember that. I remember my bedroom window at the Foster Towers. I faced Sunset Beach, so I faced that side, and I would just, yeah, if I was home during sunset, I would just like sit there
Yeah.
and watch the sun setting, or even go on the balcony. Or, I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
it was close enough to walk. I could even walk to Sunset Beach once in a while just to see the sun setting.
It was amazing.
Yeah, or
And
Tsunabe.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The food too. I think the food and the just the ocean, just the beach and the ocean.
And what's great too, I think with the food, something I remember Karen too, like the little like bento stands that are just on the side of the street. And last
Yeah.
time we went, I didn't see as many, but like when we lived there, I remember
Yeah.
they were just like right outside of our gate too from Foster Towers. There was that little like bento stand, and it was
Yeah.
just such authentic, good, and expensive
Right.
food. And oh, making me hungry. And then of course the beach. Yes, like I said, the tropics. So all right, so then when you moved as a teenager, I mean, there's a lot of change when you move internationally. There's language, there's culture, expectations, schooling, everything. So I mean, you were raised essentially with that dual Japanese or Okinawan and American, and you lived on Camp Kinzer, which was what, Navy Marine Corps base.
Yeah.
But still, like living on Okinawa as someone growing up as an American or with Americans, you're surrounded like really close to, and then moving to the United States. Tell me about like that change. Like, how did you feel when you moved? What were some of the difficulties or struggles that you had?
I think the biggest, just looking back, I think one was so the regional identification, like especially with collegiate, like so
Mhm.
the NCAA's right now, everyone has like a home team, or if I'm in South Carolina, I'm Myrtle Beach right now, and then it's split between Clemson and USC. And then so
Mhm.
I didn't understand that. I was like, people say, "Oh, where are you from?" I'm like, here." Like,
That's the question, right? With
yeah,
military
yeah.
brats.
Where you from? I was like, "Oh, Michigan," but like, I wasn't really from Michigan, so I didn't really have identification. But I did definitely have, like in those days, the starter jackets were all Michigan. And it was the Fab Five, so like, I just gravitated towards that because it was a popular thing. And I just so happened to have family in Michigan, but not knowing like how strong that was ingrained into American culture
Mhm.
um, was interesting. And like so, being a huge Michael Jordan fan, I didn't know that North Carolina, the Tar Heel Jordan. I didn't know all those those stories until I got to this day. I was like, oh, I just know Jordan from what I saw on like VHS tapes or what my friends brought or what was on TV. But so that identification was one. And then just the narrow-mindedness of culture. I went to
Mhm.
North Carolina, and North Carolina is pretty well, not all of North Carolina, but Jacksonville, North Carolina, rural area. It's a military town, but then the military, the schools. I was on a off-base school for the first time. That was completely different. We had some kids that I knew from Kubasaki, so that was nice
Okay.
to see, and kids that I knew from elementary school. So I got to graduate with kids that I went to elementary school with, but just the culture, it was mainly what I felt was either black or white. And if you're a brown, it was like, oh, Mexican or Hawaiian. I was like, no. But yeah, just those elements were culture, and then just the I guess culture overall, different elements
Um,
of culture.
well, and then talking about the schools, how was the schooling, the public school different? Like, what were some of the changes with that, and what were some of the things that you had to, I guess, acclimate or figure out?
I almost graduated because I hated the school. I had enough credits to graduate my junior year, and I hated it. It was terrible. I was like, oh, this is not my, like, when I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to the States, and then like the lights and this and that and the other. I got there, it was like rural. I was like, there's no lights, there's no city. This is terrible. And then the schools. I'll speak. So academically, it was fine, I guess. But I was introduced to the politics. So I played football and basketball. But I remember coming, I was a new guy, and my parents weren't like really advocates. Like, so some kids' parents are like, they're in there and like, why don't you play Johnny or whatever it is? They're just like, just go and whatever happens, happens. But I was pretty good, right? But then
Mhm.
like I got there, and then I didn't play my junior year because of the politics. Like so and so's dad, there's a couple of spots I could have shorted, but then like this guy's dad was friends with the coach and those type of things I never was into. I just never was exposed to it. So that was interesting to see. And then just just a lot of racial, there's a lot of racial stuff, especially I guess in the South specifically. But
Mhm.
in the school, it was a lot of social economic discrimination, kind of sort of soft, but then the racism. But the school was fine. School was fine.
How were the sports in Okinawa? Because I mean, I was a cheerleader, but like you were mentioning how like in the public school in North Carolina, yeah, like if you it's who you knew. And
Yeah,
like growing up and stuff, was it like in with the military schools or something? Was there ever issues with like I don't remember there being issues, but like you know how we always talk about like dad's ranks and like
yeah.
depending
No,
on outranking or anything like that. Like, did you ever experience or see any of that?
no, it was always whoever got the whoever. If you were talented, it was, oh, come here. Like it was. And I always got. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but it was like, okay, I played sports, so it was like I was used to being like, okay, I know I'm good because I play with older kids. And I've been doing that for my whole life, basically. And
Yeah.
then now I'm like, okay, well, he's not even that good. Or and then so I realized, okay, that's why, because okay, so now I understand it. But like in Okinawa or just in the military culture, I don't think you have that really because it's just the turnover is so high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I
not like
think
a
kids are always coming in and out. And then I feel like too, we didn't have as I mean, there was always what like football, wrestling.
mhm.
Did Kubasaki have a soccer team? We did,
They had a
right?
soccer team. Yeah, they had a they were good. Yeah, no, because I played soccer. Soccer was my first sport, and I remember like I didn't play football until high school. But I always threw it. I mean, I could throw and do those type of thing, but organized football, I didn't put on
Hmm.
pads until I was like a teenager, and it was like, okay, well, this is cool. But then I realized coming to the state, just watching Eli actually grow up, I'm like, this kid's playing football, like at
Yeah.
whatever age, 6, 8, or whatever. I'm like, oh, it's different, totally different. So
It is. And then I think when you're in the States, when you're not moving around, at least like you have that the consistency to be able to grow in that same program. And so
yeah,
then yeah, like everybody starts know the coaches know the kids, and then the kids, the parents know the coaches, and then they start wanting to, I guess, stay on the same teams. And I think growing up
camp,
in the military,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we
I didn't even
don't.
know about that either. Like just like AAU organized camps and like exposure camps. I coach now, but like, it was like, okay, well, some of the stuff is still eye opening. It's like, wow, like I didn't even know this stuff existed. Like this is really thorough. Like for me to even think of like I could even play at a professional level when I was younger,
Mhm.
impossible. Like I grew up totally, I wasn't even in the system. Like I wasn't even registered. So yeah, that's a lot of differences, but definitely I didn't I remember one soccer team, we had the company commander's daughter,
Mhm.
but I mean, he was the highest ranking guy on the base, but I mean, she didn't get special treatment. She was good, but she didn't get more playing time because
Right.
yeah.
And then that's interesting. Sports and the Department of Defense, like the schools. I guess that's something I think I might look into later. Like, yeah, like the college scholarships for sports.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, yeah, like I guess making a path to go farther than high
It's
school sports.
yeah, it's almost impossible. I think we had one guy that I could think of back there, Jamel Smith. I think he was in maybe around your class. Jamal or Jamel Smith. And like, but then like he got some one high level D1 scholarship, I think it was.
Okay.
Like so many players that are like there's talent, but just because of the turnaround, like there was no program really to funnel kids. But yeah, that's interesting because that's something I've been really researching, like just
Oh
being
yeah.
being at Coastal, coaching. Like one of my friends that I met at Coastal Carolina University was like a local hometown hero. Like just hearing his story growing up, I was like, oh my God, like there's no way. Like if I would have been able to experience some of that, like they had pads like Eli when they were
Mhm.
kids. Like I didn't put on pads until I was a teenager. So there's like a huge gap of just familiarity. But yeah, that's a whole different realm
Or
there.
even, yeah, like getting recruited and
Getting
like
recruited.
stats and everything. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, like that's an interesting, we'll have to pin that for
yeah. Because even the
another.
stat, just real quick, sorry, just I had to make my
No.
own highlight tape, but I didn't have any highlights. I was like, okay, okay, I don't know anybody who has my tapes from Japan. So like I had one
Yeah.
or two clips. I was like, okay, you're not gonna get anything with one or two clips, but yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
because
definitely.
the turnaround is so much, so they probably don't like, there's not a concentration on growing that,
No,
it's all
yeah,
about in the moment in that year and what's going on that year, because you don't know who's going to be back next year.
exactly.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So all right, well, let's get started talking about the other stuff again. So how did you self-identify, I guess, before, like growing up when you were younger in Okinawa, and then did that change, like how you self-identified racially or ethnically? How did that change when you moved to the States, or did it change?
I just growing up in Okinawa, and it really wasn't a thing. It was Okinawa. I grew up in Okinawa. I mean, I would go off base, and then you're darker, and then like, or in Miyako Island, like just okay, but like so. I just thought I was a normal kid, but then I would hear people in the store and say stuff, but it really didn't bother me. But then I felt like I didn't really get a strong identification until I got to the States,
Mhm.
where I was like super challenged and like um, just challenged for like who I
So how
was.
were you challenged? Explain that a
Um,
little bit.
challenged in the sense, okay, so growing up in Okinawa where everyone's mixed and there's just a lot of diversity, it was common to say, where are you from, or what are your parents, or what's your ethnicity, those type of things. And it was like a soft question. It was an open question. It was nice. It was like a friendly question.
Mhm.
In the States, when I
Right.
came up, and I was like, oh, you're not from here, or okay, you're right. I'm not from here, but where I'm from, this is how we get down. So I had to like just really assert myself, and then like, okay, like really uh take pride in my mixed culture and represent. Like I flew my flag proudly. Like this is who I am. I'm Japanese and black, and this is how I draw. This is how I score on tests. This is how I write. This is how I speak. This is how I play sports. And
Mhm.
then there were times where this is how I fight. So, but so that it was definitely what's up, man? Definitely, definitely aggressive in the States. Yeah.
I apologize. I think
Oh,
my
you're fine.
daughter opened her door, so my dogs are barking. If you can hear that. Yeah, I think that question of like, I guess, quote unquote, what are you and
Yeah,
where are
yeah,
you from, and what's your race or ethnicity? I think that tone and I guess the situation, yeah, we become especially for military brats and mixed race people, I think we can become defensive when that question's asked, because I ask that question a lot to
yeah,
people, but I'm not asking, I don't feel like I'm asking, and I hope my tone doesn't come across as being rude, where I'm like, I guess judgmental in a sense.
yeah. There you go.
But
Judgment. Yeah,
yeah, I'm asking more out of curiosity and
there
then
you go.
commonality. And because a lot of times, yeah, like if I met somebody and I wasn't sure, I'd be like, oh, are you, Japanese, or
Yeah,
are you mixed or something? Because I'm asking to start a conversation with them. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm half Japanese, or I'm half Asian, or I'm this and that. And it starts that friendly conversation. But I do feel that once we got out of that military lifestyle,
yeah,
where there's so many interracial families, and so there's so many mixed race people, and we're kind of like having fun with that. Once you get out of that and it's so segregated and not as like diverse, where people aren't as comfortable with that interracial relationships and families and atmosphere, I think that or intercultural and ethnic, I think that it becomes more judgmental, I guess, and we become more defensive in how it's being asked and why it's being asked. Because it's like when you ask, what are you? It's like, well, okay, what are you trying to get at? I don't know.
Like, so dating, if you like, so being Black is really like offensive. It can be offensive. It's like, okay, well, oh, I didn't know you're Black. Like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way. Like, you asked me, so like they
That's
wanted to
so
clear.
weird.
And then there was a different response. Okay, well, I thought you were this. And then if parents ask, it just becomes like there's a what's the word? Agenda, a hidden agenda. Like
Mhm.
it's not just a harsh, just the judgmental, all that type of stuff. So and all negative. But yeah.
That's interesting. Well, I mean, did you like, I guess, yeah, with dating in the South and then getting out of the military as you were getting older, like, how did you deal with all of that? Like, because I guess you are multifacial. I mean, I know you, I've known you
Yeah.
for many years and I know like what your racial background is, I guess. So when I see you, like, I see the Okinawan
Yeah, yeah,
features in you and,
yeah,
but
definitely.
like, yeah, I guess like going to a place like the Deep South, like it can be a struggle. So how did you deal with like the dating and
It was difficult. Like I tried. I guess you have to adapt. And initially, like the one of the first girls that I dated in North Carolina, that was the harsh reality. There was like a wake up call, and because I was Black, half Black, and then and at that it was my senior, I think it was, and then I was playing sports. I was pretty popular, had good grades, nothing. I wasn't like a troublemaker or anything, but then like their family was white American in the South, and then there was a social economic divide there, and like, oh, what neighborhood do you live in? These are questions I never even heard before. I'm like, okay.
Mhm.
So, and then, oh, you're Black, okay, and then, oh, you're Buddhist, and then there was like check, just no, 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 no. So I just took it. Okay, we don't have to be together. We don't have to do this. Like that's fine. We can still be friends, but and that's just my stance on it. It's just like, well, if it's there's so many categories, and if you're not going to accept me, there's some
Mhm.
lots of other people. We don't have to go that route. So I mean, there was definitely a filtering, or just a, well, no, it has to be a filter because if you're in the South, you know there's going to be, well, that girl's cute. There's only you can only take it so far in most respects, I think, from my experience. And there's
Mhm.
obviously people, oh, we're not racist, but then you bring home somebody that's different color, or
Different.
different race, or different religion, it becomes awkward. So I experienced that a couple of times, and I accepted it and I understand it, so that's fine.
You get through it.
Yeah.
So so with that, I guess, like, how do you think those expectations about you, like, or perceptions about you changed when people found out what your racial and ethnic background was, when they were, I guess, confused or questioning it? Do you feel like their attitudes changed and or their expectations of how you did in sports or in academics or work or anything like that?
I think just it was a turnoff. It was definitely for them. It was not accepting. It was the fact that okay, there are certain categories we're willing to accept, and the race, he's half Black, nope, or he's Buddhist, nope, or whatever that is. It's unfortunate, but yeah, I mean, I think they were looking for reasons. Once they see color, excuse their perception or their acceptance, and then so no matter what I did, that's fine because, like I said, if it was the first time that I needed, if I needed some, I didn't lack confidence, so I didn't need someone to give me an opinion or their validation. It was like, okay, well, that's fine because if no one's gonna boost me, my mother's gonna boost me, my friends boost me. I just met you, so
Mhm.
I really don't need you in my life, which is fine. So, and then just the faith I had in myself. I pray every day, and I just have a. It doesn't say anything about. I just don't need those opinions. So there's been times where in the past where it's been violent, and that's just like I think it's more of like a. I don't know what that is. It's dangerous, but there's been violence too. I don't think we want to talk about that, but just the dating. Um, there's always been. We've never taken it past oh, you're Black or you're Buddhist. Once those elements are introduced and there's friction, then I just, okay, we don't need to push this any further because the outcome is going to be negative. And then unless we're getting married,
Mm-hmm.
there's no reason to try to go against the grain, so to speak. That's how I felt.
So being Buddhist in North Carolina, like I can't imagine there's a huge Buddhist community. Like, what is
Yeah.
the Buddhist community like in North Carolina?
Well, because the Marines,
Okay.
it was pretty strong. It was a familiarity because I moved there and it was okay. So I knew some kids, and there's always going to be Japanese and white, Japanese and Black. You go like, so we have like the Buddhist meetings or gathering, like going to church, so to speak, and then you see yourself. Okay, oh, okay, yeah, so and so's mom, Korean and Black. Oh, Japanese and white, and like just military families, and then like the old Japanese lady with the military dad husband, right? So it was a strong, I would say pretty strong. Not a mega church strong, but like
Mm-hmm.
or like a Buddhist community on an international level. 100 people at like gatherings
All
was
right.
common, and then they had like Raleigh, where Raleigh was more diverse, and they had like it was like a cultural uh on like first Sundays would have like meetings in Raleigh, and then so that was like a stronger presence. But
Are they mostly military families?
no, not in Raleigh. Raleigh is just diverse. So
Okay.
because I think from they pull from the all the schools there, Duke, Carolina, Hope, Peace, Meredith, all the universities there. So I think that helps with the diversity. But in Jacksonville, definitely all military.
How do you think that Buddhist, like you said, you looked into it like yourself, yeah, your mom can lift you up, you're Buddhist. How did that community, I guess, help you deal with those other changes and some of the struggles that maybe you had with fitting in or coming into the stateside, getting out of that military community?
It just gave me a sense of just a familiarity, like just being able to, okay, so like these are the same kind of faces that I saw on base or in Japan, and we're doing the same things. So just being able to go there and be amongst your people, I guess, and
Mm-hmm.
being around Asian women is always like settling for me. Like, oh, I can see my mom and Asian women, and then so like if I see a mixed family, okay, I see myself in that family. So it just gave me a sense of belonging and just like ease. So, and then my faith is just unshakable faith I have.
Oh,
Yeah, unshakable faith. So it doesn't matter what I go through. Like it doesn't matter what I go through. So if I need to pray it up, I'm gonna pray it up. And then once I prayed up, once I'm prayed up, it's just full power. So it doesn't matter what. Doesn't matter what.
that's great. Well, like Karen said, you're like a self-help book, like a walking self-help book.
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of embarrassing. Like, oh, yeah. I
That's
think about it.
great
Yeah,
though. I
yeah.
mean, because a lot of people don't have that. Like I honestly, I don't have that like faith in spirit. Like I feel like I'm a spiritual person. I'm not necessarily a religious person, but I'm definitely
Yeah,
a spiritual person. Um, but I do like wish I had, I guess, more faith and that I was more like I could depend on that more and that
yeah,
and maybe if I tried harder, I could, but no, I
yeah,
think that that's great that you do have that and that like you said it's unshakable and that's
yeah. I
amazing.
get that from my mother and my mother's side. Like she's that way. My grandmother's that way, and like just seeing that was like a tradition. So like having those values that's a tradition. Faith is a tradition, like from my mother's
Mhm.
side. So like just having that, and no matter like I've been to war, and like that's what got me through was okay. I'm gonna go back, and I was overseas, and I'm like I want to live that American dream. And then so, but I have to fight for it. So I did. And then like every single day I prayed, every nonstop I prayed, she prayed, they prayed. So without that, I definitely wouldn't be who I am. But
Yeah. And I think for like for me growing up like we're Catholic, so we were raised Catholic, we were baptized Catholic. But as my, when my dad got higher up in rank, he was TDY a lot. He left a lot. He'd be gone for a couple weeks, come home for a few weeks. So my mom with 4 or 5 kids, like it was difficult to get around, especially when we lived in like England or something and she didn't like driving over there. But no, so it was difficult. And then I think I guess the more Buddhist
tradition, like it was more tradition and less religion. And because I think even she like and it's not necessarily like differentiating between what is tradition in that culture and what is the religious aspect of it, because it's sort of like, I feel like in Okinawa or something, it sort of like blends together, right? Like that's just ingrained in the culture and those traditions. And so those spiritual and because there are things like within that I definitely believe in, that I grew up with. And so I think as an adult, I don't know. Sometimes I don't know which one like is it, and I guess it doesn't matter as long as
no, because like, so I came to the States, so the first girl that the racist conversation I had with the parents, they were super, so the equivalent of my Buddhist faith, she was as a Christian.
Okay.
And so like there was a conflict there, because even my mom growing up, she's like, oh, we don't, she doesn't accept that. But I was like, well, I'm open to it because I'm mixed, right? So there's like, so I understand there's a duality. And then so like she was the first person I met as a child or as a young person that had that type of faith. And then so we would, I think that was like, I mean, she was cute, and then that personality too, but then like her faith was like, we had that as a commonality, and we kind of explored that back and forth. And like she kind of like opened my eyes into like, actually I developed a relationship with Jesus. Jesus is my homeboy. Seriously. So like I converted. I just like in my 20s. I mean, I went like I was 19. I was living on my own, and then she was like, "Well, I think you should convert now. Like Jesus is calling." Like this, and they had more economic status, and she was going to a Christian college in Texas, and she had flown home, and they had cars and this and that and the other, and I was like poor, living on my own. She's like, "Well, if you come to Jesus, all these type of things." I was like, "Well, I'll try it, whatever." So I remember making the decision. I was like, well, if I do that, like I can't do both right now. And then so I did, and I got saved. And then like I was 19 years old. I went like on a 3 years celibacy. 19 to like 22. I'm like, looking back, I'm like, oh my God, how did I do that? But like it was intense. So like I went all in. So, but just to the fact, because you said I think spiritually, like it's just there's a higher power, right? So I think that's where it comes down to. Like, I don't. As long as you believe in something, or if you don't believe, and if you ask with your heart, I think it comes.
Yeah. So you were talking about how you went to war. So you were active duty. You were Army, right?
Yeah.
So I guess let's talk about that before we like end, and how I guess how was it different, like being active duty versus I guess growing up? I mean, Marine Corps and Army, I'm sure quite different. So why did you join the Army instead of maybe because a lot of people will join whatever service their parent was in. So what made you choose Army?
Army was like the last second thing. I was going to join the Air Force. I was in college, and then like I was struggling. So I went from North Carolina, and then my parents moved. We stayed in North Carolina just so I can finish my senior year. And then my dad had already retired and was like getting everything prepared in Michigan. So when I graduated, we were gone. And I was like, oh my God, this is worse. Michigan was worse than North Carolina. I was like, well, I'm an adult now. I'm gonna go back down there. But
so hold on, how was it worse? What did you not like about, or how was that different?
Okay, so my stepdad's white.
Okay, yeah.
He moved there, and he was raised in like this rural area where there was nothing going on. It's farmland. So culturally, it's just one culture, white culture, people from Canada, and that's it. So like, I'm walking around like, what are you doing here, buddy? Like, you don't belong here, buddy. Like, we're your people. What are you doing here? So like, definitely wasn't my space. But I went to the community college there in Flint, Michigan, and then tried it out. I was like, I just gotta make a move. So I did all of the testing and everything to join the Air Force. And I was gonna do video production, and the recruiter tried to snake me around. He's like, "Oh, we don't have that. It's not open." I was like, "Well, I'll wait. I'm in school. I'll just wait. It's fine." And then so one thing led to another. I was like, "I'm done with this guy." And then the Army guy said, "Hey, come on in here, buddy." I went in there, and they had a 2-year program for the Army. A 2-year program. I was like, "Okay, 2 years." They're like, "Oh, you scored high enough. You can get these jobs. and we'll give you $2,500. I was like, $2,500? I was like, oh
got
man.
you.
I was like, oh man. So that's how I joined the Army. It was a 2-year program. It was like,
Oh
okay,
my gosh.
and the cash, which I was like, pff, which is nothing, but I was like, oh, $2,500. And then I got college money too, though. So that was the main objective. So I chose the Army, and to get the cash and the to get all the benefits, I had to be, there was like a combat arms section. I was like, oh, tanks. Cool. So I do tanks. And then this was like right before 9/11, like the spring before 9/11. So yeah.
Yeah. So well, so how was it different then? So I guess like perceptions of you, expectations of you, how do you think that was different? Being active duty, or how was it different? Like being active duty, being stateside, being a military brat. Because I mean, military brat, we're in that military community, but it's different. And then going to active duty, and yeah, you were a single man and you were in combat. So how do you think some of the perceptions or judgments about you, how do you think that was?
I think it's pretty open, because once you get that uniform on, it just becomes like you can distinguish yourself through your actions.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that's what, like, from the very beginning, like we went to basic training. It was a 4-month program. I was with men for 4 months. Like it was intense, and it was like a lot of fighting, a lot of like, I'm the man from where I come from, and there was like Mexican and black, everybody from America, and then so everybody was the man, and like that's where I realized who I was. I was like, I think I know who I am, but like I'm going into this, I want to be the best version of myself. And then so I over prepared my mind for, I got there, I was like, this is it. The time length was the biggest struggle, because we were in barracks around men for 4 months. It was crucial. But a lot of fighting, a lot of alpha male type of stuff. But I realized, like, I got the certification during those 4 months that, okay, I am this, I'm here. So whatever I felt like I was, it's been proven amongst these guys, these men, at least in these hundreds of men, I'm top tier. So like, I got the uniform on, I went to Fort Hood, Texas. It didn't matter what color you were, where you're from, as long as your uniform is nice and put together and you follow the standards, which I did, you'll climb up the ranks. But then I got there, our captain was like this, I remember he was a white, freckle-faced guy with red hair. He was nice at first because he saw my stats. He's like, okay, I just observed, okay, there was like this cultural thing, like, okay, the guys that he's lenient towards just happen to be white. I was like, oh man. And like, it got into a space where I felt I didn't get promoted as fast as I felt like. And I protested. Long story short, it came back, company commander switched, and the world righted itself. I was back to where I felt like I was supposed to. So I mean, I think race is still an issue in certain, because this is a culture. So like each company has platoons, they're broken down. So whoever the leader is, it reflects their leadership and their values, so to speak, on a smaller scale. And you shouldn't do that, but yeah. But overall, there are standards. And if you put that uniform on and you uphold and you deliver, I think it's undisputable evidence that, okay, this guy right here deserves to be this. But there's always politics and everything, I learned.
So in boot camp, when you were saying like too, there was a lot of fighting, and then how like the leaders like, and you were observing. So was it like that in boot camp, or was boot camp more about like who's the biggest alpha male, who's the biggest macho?
Yeah, I mean, there was, I think they strip you down in boot camp. They just strip you down. So it's like
to build you up, right?
Try to build you up. It's like, okay, and then so like it depends on each person's mindset or what they want to do. I've seen people break completely. And it's like, oh wow. So no matter what color you are, but if you're a grown man on the floor crying, it's because we're doing exercises, everyone's gonna lose respect for you. So like you're immediately,
oh
yeah, no, it's like, okay, they can't respect you no matter what uniform you put on or whatever you say or where you're from or what you did. You just saw that. So like those elements, just it was more about I guess heart in boot camp. Like, okay, like how smart is this guy? How fast is he? Just like your natural abilities and stuff and gifts, I guess, and how mentally strong you were. So
yeah.
Yeah.
What about when you were overseas, and
in the area of conflict? Was there any issues there? Was it more, there were more important things than the group you're hanging out with, or what race or ethnicity or where you're from? Like, that's another thing too, like, I guess where you're from.
Where you from? Yeah. I think by that point there was all that stuff was kind of put to the wayside because it's like life or death now. It's like if you didn't resolve those issues before you left, you shouldn't even be over there. But like now you're over there, yeah, it's life or death. So I think it was more about mental toughness over there because I seen people break there too. Like a lot people broke just not just being away from the family. And I was single, but just I couldn't imagine like having a family, your kids, and we didn't get mail for like maybe 2 months, and you didn't speak to people for two.
Yeah.
Like so, like you just talking on the phone and seeing them, and all of a sudden, like you're people are dying, and then you don't have anyone to speak to, and then. But I think in conflict, I think it's more you have a narrow focus, and then you're just more focused on surviving. So if you have time to think about those things, you just need to you need to hang it up and retire or something. But yeah,
there's more important things to deal with. What about when you came back then after you got out of the army? And then what was that like? You said you joined the reserves or something, right?
Yeah, no, yeah. I came to coastal, and then so I knocked my front teeth out in the combat.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So like,
did you really? How did that happen?
Random, like the first. So we were at one was recreational, right? We were just hanging out. We took over this airfield, and then we took over a hangar, made it our home base, I guess. And then so there were our unit. We all knew each other, and they were like the ground unit. We're on tanks, and they had like the infantry. These guys were hardcore. They were sleeping, like they dug holes in the dirt. Oh my God, I'm not that hardcore. I don't even want to do that. What are you doing? Come on. So we were playing football against them, like on the concrete cement, and we're two-hand. I forgot what happened. I stutter stepped and I tripped, and then slacked my tooth. I was like, oh my God. So I got it fixed by some dentist there. But
oh my gosh.
We were driving around. We're trying to find tents. We found some tent. Oh, come on in. And the guy, like, he didn't take any pride in his work. I don't know why he was even. He just put it on there. It was like a band. Like, just put something in there. It was like half my tooth. I was like, oh my God, terrible. But I couldn't complain because people were getting wounded and losing limbs. I was like, okay, this is just like a humble pie. Eat it, whatever. Then like a month later, or a week, couple weeks, short time span later, I had an incident on the tanks. We had moved to a different location, and then there was some action activity, and then like I was trying to get cover, and then I fell, and then like smacked the other tooth.
You are clumsy.
But that one was like more of like a situation. So it was like, okay, let me get the cover, and then so like there's a hole in the top of the tank, in the turret.
Oh my gosh.
We got into, and it was at night, and then so I went to brace myself, and then I just went right in the hole, and my tooth smacked, and then so.
Well, I guess better your tooth than your life. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was just teeth, and like so that one.
Oh my gosh.
There were teeth. I have them somewhere. The last 19 years, I've had these issues with these teeth. They're not even fixed yet.
Oh, really? Like, all these years I've done, I never knew those were fake teeth.
Yeah, no, like, that part is good. I went to several different. So I joined the whole story. I joined the National Guard for the dental because they were supposed to get it done. Something happened, so I was like, let me join the National Guard. And then I'm in this place. Let me get some people around where I feel familiar, a brotherhood. But the National Guard at that time was way different. I was traveling. I live in Myrtle Beach, and if you go 20 minutes outside of the beach, it's just super country, rural, Southern folks. And there's pockets of Black, pockets of white, and some Mexican. I went to this place. It was like, I don't even know what podunk means, or what that's the word that came to mind. I was like, oh my God. Like, so I took pride in my uniform. My uniform was like really nice and sharp. And then so like, not in the stances, and I was the guidon bearer, like in the front with the flag. So like I had just crispy. And then so I got to this unit. These guys had belts from home, which is like a super violation. There's a military issue. You don't wear anything, but if you wear the uniform, it better be standardized and
right.
the issue. These guys had belts,
With their uniform on?
With their uniform from home. They had like just so many violations. They're in the formation doing dip and drinking beer. I'm like, what in the heck is this? So
Well,
it
in
was
formation?
well in formation. Like this was incredible. So like, and then so like they saw me and just were like, and you get a combat patch. If you go to so you get one patch, but if you go to combat, it's like you wear that with pride. And then, so no one had a combat patch but me.
Mm-hmm.
And I came here. Who's this? Where are you from? Who are you? You think you're all that because you had my boots were nice and shiny. Everything was. I was trying to make a good first impression. And like, okay, like I'm from Fort Hood, Texas. I got this combat patch. This is how I get down.
There's a standard.
Standard. And I was bred to like the guys that trained me. Like you got to exceed the standard. This is the standard. We're gonna be here. So I was like, okay, that's my language. So I got there and they put me in the grinder. They're like, you're not from here, boy, type stuff. The good old boys. There you go.
Oh, wow.
I got good old boy. So I learned that. So that was a huge, that would never go, that culture would never be allowed like in active duty.
Right.
In this, I'm assuming because they're part-time things. But again, the leadership, whoever's involved, whoever's the leader allows that. So yeah, I got put in the grinder.
How'd you get through that? And then how long did you have to deal with that?
I quit. I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing this. This is not even this. I did a try 1 year. It was because there was a huge culture difference. So then when you leave active duty, they allow you to do 1 year. And then so at that 1 year, I was like, no, I can't do it. Actually, I went to Japan. I studied abroad.
Oh, really?
And I even asked them. They were like just so not sharp mentally. Or I don't know what they were kind of. They were playing the part, and then so I asked them. I was like, oh, "I'm going to study abroad. Is that okay?" Yeah. Had all the paperwork, submitted it, and I left. And they called me in Japan, like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "I'm studying abroad."
Oh, wow.
Check the files, but like, okay, yeah, you're fine. Yeah. So that was the first stint. And then the second stint, I was going to be an officer, actually.
Right.
I went to officer candidate school, and then I dropped out because I had to figure out, do I want to go to summer school or take officer candidate school? And then I ended up going to summer school, and they denied my financial aid, so I didn't go to summer school, which sucked.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was tough.
Don't you have the GI Bill or?
That was a smack in the face too, because when I got here, the GI Bill, I had 28,000 or 20 some, roughly $30,000 for school. So I was going to pay out of state tuition. I was like, well, I got GI Bill money. So I calculated everything. I have 2 years, and I played sport. I was like, I'm going to walk on by 2 years. I'll be a scholarship player. And then so I got here. They're like, oh, you don't have any money. How are you going to pay? I was like, I have the GI Bill. At the time, the GI Bill didn't kick in until after you got enrolled. And then they started paying you after the semester started.
Oh, which is after tuition is due, right?
After tuition is due. I remember the advisor was like, well, you have some soul searching to do, son. I was like, yeah, you're right.
Oh, wow.
So I had to get student loans.
Yeah.
I was like, I just went to war for this money. Now I got to get student loans. But so
that's crazy.
Changed it. Yeah, they changed it now, which is way better. They pay up front and they give you a stipend. But when I was there, it was different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess that can be like a whole nother topic on like, and I think there's even like podcasts and people that do help people who are like coming out trying to use that GI Bill and getting the veteran benefits and stuff like that. Yeah, I know that I follow a couple of like podcasts where it's military veterans and they talk about different aspects of like acclimating when you get out of the military. And then
the unemployment was one of the benefits. I was like, I'm not getting unemployment. I'm gonna have a job. I'm going to school. But then I went to Liza, Karen, we all met in Las Vegas. Liza was in Las Vegas, and then so we met up once I got back to the States. I think Angel was getting baptized, so we went there, and then so just talking to her father. Liza's father was retired, and then Liza's sister's boyfriend was a Marine, and they were talking about these benefits. So I was like, no one ever told me these things. I was like, oh, that's it's awesome. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. Or
A lot
even
of
like the paperwork.
yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff. So just it's nice to have. I didn't know there were podcasts about that stuff.
Yeah. I'll forward to you some of the ones that I've listened to a few episodes for. But why don't we finish up? So why don't you tell me too though, so what kind of advice would you give to your younger self, and or what kind of advice would you give to somebody who was maybe in a similar circumstance in the change that you had moving from Okinawa to the States?
I would say so. Like since we talked about just the information is power. Knowledge is power. I didn't have any like those resources, like just even choosing this school, and like
Mhm.
me thinking like just the ignorance and just the lack of information. Okay, this is how the GI Bill works. I would have chose differently. And maybe I probably wouldn't have because I'm hard headed, but like being able to understand in depth how the system works. Because if you don't and you go blindly, and that's determination is good, but then you can get yourself in situations where you don't need to be in.
Yeah.
So I think just being able to do the proper research, and then if they're now they have podcasts, YouTube, a lot of digital resources you have. So I would say just do your resources or do your research, get some resources. If you can find a mentor, mentors are just invaluable. Um, but if worse comes to worse, pray about it. Just pray. Just pray. I did though. I did though. That's good advice. But I mean, hey, I think mentorship. Mentorship. If you can find a mentor, that's probably the biggest hack you can have is mentorship.
Yeah. Then what kind of advice would you give maybe like a kid switching from like getting out of the military,
Yeah, I
or
don't
like
know.
getting out of that military community, how you made that drastic move from Okinawa to North Carolina, and maybe anybody who's either like worried about that or struggling with those changes, who are mixed race like you were, multifacial, what kind of
Yeah,
advice would you give them?
man. I guess depends on what age, but I mean, it just try to figure out who you are, like, and just know who you are, like who your parents are. I know you have some family traditions, and just don't change those. If you some people try to pressure you to fitting into a mold, don't succumb to that. And it's just be bold, be confident in who you are. Things are going to be tough depending on what part of the state you're in, and then hopefully
Mhm.
you can find some. Just I also I guess find your tribe. Your tribe is that's a key term now, but like you can find a community. I'm sure online they have a lot of resources. Like there's a couple Blasian networks. I'm not really active, but I just see them. Like okay, I'm in them. Um, just to have and find your tribe. I guess if your family is not that, then hopefully you can find some friends. But find your tribe. Be true to yourself.
Yeah, there's always people out there who are, I mean, that you're going to have something in common with, that
Yeah.
there's to go to for support, whether it's family, friends, or even, yeah, strangers that you meet on a Facebook group.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no, I agree. Well, that's great advice. But thank you, Ko, again, for being on
Thank you.
here again.
Damn.
So I think this will come out after your guys' group, that fun group
I didn't see that one. I
episode.
haven't watched it back yet, but Karen said it was nice. It was adorable. I think she said.
I know, Liza crying.
Yeah, no, I had fun. It was. I thought it was a classic. Couple classic moments in there. That was definitely a classic moment.
It was great. So, but thank you again for doing this and re-recording this for me.
My pleasure.